Welcome to Coffee, the podcast where two awkward Brits talk to unsuspecting guests about horror. Did it! I'm one of your hosts, Lou Yardley. I write things where I get to kill people, and today I'm drinking a lovely cup of tea from a cauldron. And I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
Hello, I'm Janine Pipe, also a sort of horror author when I can. And today I have a latte in my Christmas Starbucks mug, and we are joined by David Sodergren. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah. Maybe without the incredible emphasis. Sure. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be here. Drinking water.
Water. Oh, it's Cryptids, Crypts and Coffee, and I'm the only one with coffee.
Is this the wrong time to tell you I don't drink coffee then?
Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
Who did the research on this guy?
I know, you've let the side down already. I haven't read your books and you don't drink coffee. We're fucked.
And we're all totally organised with what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we've done loads of research, absolutely loads, obviously. But it's all on you, David, because this was your choice. I never give the guests a choice usually, and this time we're like, what should we talk about? So if this all fails, it's on you.
Well, to be fair, my suggestion was 70s horror, and you turned that one down. So
I did, yeah, because I was like, wow, I lived for 3 days in the 70s, so I don't know my 70s horror.
90s it is. I'm sure we all grew up in the 90s, so it should be
yes,
formative time.
It certainly was. Right, I think we decided that we would start with just a little bit about yourself, David. And then we'll jump into talking about the films and things like that. So for all of our millions of listeners, there are millions of listeners, yep, who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
So I'm David Sodergren. I'm a Scottish horror author. I have 4 books out at the moment, starting with Forgotten Island, then Night Shoot, Dead Girl Blues, and my newest release is Maggie's Grave. And I am accompanied by my pug, Boris.
Hey!
Just lording it up. I don't know what else you want to know. I'm not very good at talking about myself. I'm a great podcast guest.
I'll ask a couple of questions. And when did you start writing?
Well, I started when I was very young. Which of course would have been the early. I was born in 1982, so in 1990 I would have been 8. So the 90s formative decade for me. Formative, I said it again. Important decade for me, 8 to 18. So I would have started writing. I remember my first novel that I tried to write, which ended up being 2 A4 pages, was a sequel to Child's Play 3.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Would have been 1992 or something, I think. So it was that was pretty terrible. I've read a lot. I gave up sort of writing for quite a while, until just maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I started again, just doing little short stories and things that no one's ever seen, no one ever will see. And then around that time, I was getting into Instagram a bit because I was putting up photos of Boris with all my horror books and things, and that got me that got the urge back to start writing again. So I wrote a novel for NaNoWriMo 3 years ago, maybe, I think, which was pretty terrible. And then straight after that, I wrote my next one, Forgotten Island, which is the first release that I put out. So yeah, it would have been about 4 or 5 years, I think.
Are you doing NaNoWriMo this year?
Sorry?
Are you doing NaNoWriMo this year?
Yes, yeah. I have written a novella, so it's come out about 43,000 words. To be fair, I had started it before, so I've actually put 20,000 words. Yeah, well, you know. But that's now finished. It's in the editing stage just now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it though, because it's so horrible and unpleasant, and And I know authors are
I'll
always
read it.
it might
That's
be worse.
it. Yeah, that's what we want. Horrible.
It's just really unpleasant. Like, it's just. I'm
My
like, I don't know what-
favourite bits of Maggie's grave are the horrible bits.
Yeah.
Yes, you read Maggie's Grave. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I read it in a day.
Wow.
I wasn't working that day, so that's fine.
No. It's I've had quite a few people say they read it in a day, and I don't know. I'm just such a slow reader nowadays that it takes me about a month to read a book. I've started doing audiobooks so I can listen on the way home from work because there's just very little time, especially when you're writing as well and things.
Yeah.
It's difficult just to find that time, but it's very important to keep reading all the time as well. So.
Definitely. Have you got a favourite of the books that you've written so far?
Just choked on my water. Hang on. A
That one
favourite.
happens to was coffee.
A favourite, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really a favourite. No. I suppose good ones to start with or something would be I think either Night Shoot or Maggie's Grave. I think they're the most appealing. But then Forgotten Islands, my bestseller by far. Dead Girl Blues is more awfully nasty and violent and things as well, far more than the other ones, I'd say. Yeah.
So that just ticks all the boxes. Nasty, violent, bring it on. Awesome. Okay.
The thing I liked about
Sorry. No,
one of the things I liked about Maggie's Grave is it's you think, oh, it's going to start off quite slowly, but there's violence right from the beginning.
Nice.
Yeah. You have to hook the author right from the first chapter, you know.
Yeah.
Hook the reader. Oh my god.
And the author. I'm sure you were hooked.
Yes.
Yeah. And I always think if you can hook in other authors, that you've got your audience.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I'm actually quite liked Maggie's. My mum reads all my books, and I wish she wouldn't because they're really horrible. But she appreciated, apart from the nasty bit of violence near the start, then it settles into a bit of a sort of quieter, slower folk horror type feel, and I think and I lulled her into a false sense of security with that, because then, as you know, it gets pretty.
There's a beautiful bit on Maggie's Grave.
Yes, that was a lot of fun to write.
Oh, I've got to get it. It sounds good. I've ordered. I've got Night Shoot on order for Christmas. That was the one that I thought that I would go with, but the more I hear about Maggie's Grave, I'm like, I might have to get that as well.
You'll love it.
Yeah,
I promise.
Yeah, Lou and I've got very similar tastes, though.
Yeah, I think did you say that Lou was into, or actually Lou? Yeah, I've heard that you were into John Hudson. Is that right?
I am, and I kind of got a Hudson vibe from some of Maggie's Grave as well.
Yeah, he's definitely a huge influence on me, Sean Hudson. Grew up reading his stuff.
Oh, hello.
Or is it like Sean Hudson?
No, obviously. He's offended. He's off.
Oh, he's just getting comfy.
Oh, it's so cute.
I can't see him.
Oh, you can see him on the YouTube.
Yeah. I could only hear him.
Yeah.
If the dog walks upstairs, he will bark, so you'll definitely hear him, I'm sure.
Oh. Have you ever wanted to do a collaboration with someone?
I'm actually doing one right now, funnily enough.
Ah, okay.
So,
can you tell us anything?
Yeah. So my good friend Steve Stred, he's a Canadian author. We connected online long before I'd actually even written Forgotten Island. And we talked back then about doing a horror western, because we both love horror and westerns. And unfortunately, we've left it so long that now there was not many horror westerns coming out at the time, and now there's a whole series of them. So we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot there. But also, ours is very different. It's more Faustian almost, but it's two concurrent storylines running alongside. I've written the part in the past, he's written the part in the present, and it's that should be out next year.
That sounds...
So Steve's and I'm currently working on 4 at once, and that's not including this coming book. So yeah, it's just finding the time. It's getting that moment where you just, how you just sort of go between projects, and whichever one's got your interest at that moment, that's the one you're working on. We just need that to hit again. And then I have a potential collaboration coming probably the year after, but that's very, very, very early stages yet, so I shouldn't mention too much about that. But that'll be a good one if that transpires.
Awesome. How do you find doing collaboration work?
I was never sure about it. I couldn't figure out how it would work. And to be honest, when I see books, I mean, the way me and Steve have done it, so I'm writing half the story, he's writing the other half, and then it'll sort of combine.
Right.
That works for us. I can't understand how a normal novel or novella would be written by 2 people. I don't get it.
It is hard. Yeah. I'm working on one at the moment, but we do it so I'm one character, one chapter, and then I pass it on, and then he writes one, and we're doing it like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And you think, you think in the edit, because do you have quite similar voices, or do you think he'll just have to?
Very different voices, and we're also doing it so that I'm writing as the male character and he's writing as the female character, just to challenge us both a bit. And his writing, he does write horror, but he writes quite a lot of fantasy as well, so I think it's probably more of a push for him. But my character's really nasty and violent, so I'm enjoying my horrible male character. But yeah, it's I think I've got the easiest part, because I write my chapter and then his female echoes kind of like what I've already done. So he kind of does that side of it, whereas I don't know, we'll see. He's going to edit it all and put it all together when we finally get around to it. But I've got 2 more collabs next year that I'm doing as well, so we shall see.
That's exciting.
It is, yeah.
Any names? Can you tell us? Or
one I've been sworn I'm not allowed to say. He's a bit superstitious about it, so I'll have to. And then the other one is with Jill from Candisha Press. And we're gonna, so it's going to be 2 females, but we're going to do it. It's going to be, she's going to write her part in America because she's American, and my part will be in Britain, and it's going to be more of a serial killer, psychological type, but very, very violent. We like to dispel all the myths that females can't do violent writing, the same as with Lou does. Our stuff is it's violent and bloodthirsty and all of that kind of stuff. So
absolutely. Well, yeah, because I mean, also the myth that the women don't enjoy, because most I'm totally just going by people who post on Instagram and leave reviews and things. I'd reckon that way more than half of my readership is women, which is nice, because my books are really gross. So the women don't enjoy that is nonsense. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Bring it on, we say. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add about yourself and your writing and that kind of thing before we move on to some of the 90s stuff? No, you're happy at the minute. Just, I mean, we do this really casually, so just throw bits in and stuff. Lou, did you have a question there?
Yeah, going back to Maggie's grave. Again.
Do we have to raise our hands for questions? Is that?
I don't know where that came from. But with Maggie's grave, first of all, Janine, I would say one name to you, James Blunt, and when you read the book, you will laugh when it comes up.
Awesome. Okay. Yep.
When I was reading the book, I haven't had a physical reaction to a book for ages, so I don't really cry and I don't really get scared when I read. but I got to that bit and that scene, and I actually laughed out loud.
Oh, awesome.
So watch out for that bit.
Okay.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is Maggie's grave. I saw at the end it was loosely based on a grave that actually exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, so it's there's Maggie's grave is real. Maggie Wall actually existed, probably.
True
There's
story.
Yeah. She definitely existed. There's a grave. It's out sort of Perthshire way in Scotland. This tiny little village called Dunning, and it's pretty much as described in the book. I made it a lot spookier, and I put it on top of a mountain instead of just in the middle of a big field. But it's the only grave marker in the UK, I believe, dedicated to a single witch. It says on the plaque, Maggie Wall burnt here as a witch. 1692, is it? Oh, I can't remember. I wrote the damn book, I should know. And it's quite eerie. It's an odd little place. We drove about an hour and a half to get there just so we could go and me and my wife. She has no interest in it, but she told me just to take some photos of the spooky grave. There's something about it though, yeah. People had left little offerings and things. Now they've checked the records. No one can find any trace of this Maggie Wall ever existing or being burnt as a witch. But someone, for years and years and years, it's been there for centuries, and someone cleans it and rewrites the inscription on it and things, but no one knows who does that.
Wow, that's really cool.
There must be some local, maybe passed down generation to generation. I don't know, but yeah, I originally wasn't going to put the photo in the book, and then I thought, actually, it's quite a nice little thing to put.
Definitely, yeah.
It's a nice little touch at the end.
Yeah.
It might be real.
Woo! I want to see a bit more now. Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you very much. So, 90s horror. Since you're our guest, we'll let you start.
Oh.
Why don't you tell us a couple of movies from the 90s that were pivotal for you?
For me, so the 90s for me is kind of like a decade of two halves almost. At the start, horror felt like it had been sort of ghettoized a little bit. It was back in the sort of direct-to-video phase. And then in the second half, it seemed to become a lot more mainstream again. Horror goes through these periodic mainstream, non-mainstream phases. And the one that, of course, brought it screaming back into the mainstream, Jesus Christ, is Scream.
Yeah.
So Scream, I'm sure you've both seen Scream, yeah?
Many times, yeah.
That was a huge one. I remember reading about it in Fangoria, and of course it came out in 96?
It was, yeah.
So I would have been not old enough to see it in the cinema. So I remember renting it the day it came out from Blockbuster Video. My gran would always rent me any film that I wanted, and just sitting down to watch that. And just that opening 10 minutes, absolutely, the tension, the suspense, unbelievable. I'm also quite emotional at the end of that scene as well. She's trying to call to her parents, and Scream, a huge deal for me.
I feel like it also paved the way for a lot of teen slashers around that time as well, because you had Urban Legend and
I Know What You Did Last Summer, all that kind of stuff.
Valentine.
Yeah. I saw it at the cinema because I'm that little bit older, but I was only 16 and our cinema was really, really strict, so I had to take my parents with me, and my stepdad fell asleep.
Oh.
It was that kind of like absolute stereotypical thing that like your dad does at the cinema. So we'd sat down like way before it was meant to start. He'd eaten like an entire thing of popcorn, and just as like the credits started to roll, I was like, so my God, it's embarrassing enough I've had to bring you to just to get in, and now what are you doing? But yeah, that was my first 18 movie at the cinema, so I'm quite glad I got to see it on the big screen.
I feel like my first 18 was Scream 2, funnily enough.
Okay, yeah, I saw all of them at the cinema afterwards, but yeah.
Well, I'd seen 2, 3, and 4 at the cinema, but not part 1. But then about 2 weeks ago, just before we went back into sort of semi-lockdown here in Edinburgh, I managed to catch Scream at the cinema.
Oh wow!
For the first time, and it was like they were screening an old DVD print, and the sound was terrible, and the picture was cut off a bit at the bottom and top, so you were seeing parts of people like that,
like a pirate one. Yeah.
It was Scream, and it was just fabulous to see. Another, I think the other sort of major one towards the end, also kind of like Scream ushering in a sort of new slasher boom, but another film that brought in a whole new trend that's still going to this day was a Blair Witch Project.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
That was what, 99, 98?
Must have been 99 because I saw it with my now husband and we met in 99. So must have been the tail end of then. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's just, to this day, I think that's still an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
I remember the hype for it was so crazy. I remember watching it with my friends, and there was like it was Barry Norman Film Show or something like that, and they had a reporter there outside who'd just gone to see it at Cannes or one of its first public screenings, and then she was outside and she was weeping and she was terrified and like pale face and things, and I thought, we have to see this. And then caught that opening night at the Cameo Cinema in Edinburgh. And it was almost ruined because the screen wasn't particularly well soundproofed. So, like, halfway through the film, you could hear police sirens going by, and then drunks loitering in the alleyway outside and things. But actually, it didn't matter. And when it came to that ending, going in through the house and things, unbelievable. I'm going to slightly spoil Blair Witch. If you've not seen it, come on, it's 21 years old, guys. But I remember getting home, lying in bed, and I was thinking, if I turn round, is someone going to be standing in the corner facing the...
Oh, yeah. That scene is just so iconic now, I think. It stays with you.
Have you ever seen any of the alternative endings on the DVD?
No.
I feel that we've got the DVD, so I feel that I must have done at some point, but I can't remember it now.
They're terrible, so you're so lucky.
That's probably why I don't remember them.
There's one of them, and she goes down, to forget, wrapped head to toe in like vines, floating in the air like this. Like,
oh.
And you know what? I mean, sure, it's fine, but compared, I don't think the film would have had the impact if it wasn't for that ending. And in fact, even just a few years ago, I watched it with a bunch of friends who'd never seen it before. And when it came towards the ending, they were screaming, they were like shaking and stuff. And I was really pleased to see it. It still has that impact.
Yeah. It's one, I know, as you said, there's been so many different found footage movies since, but I think it is still one of the best. Definitely. Although, what do you think of the things that have come afterwards? Like Blair Witch 2 and all of that, the Blair Witch and all of that.
Blair Witch 2 flirts with being really good. I know it was horribly recut by the studio, so apparently there is Joe Berlinger's original versions out there somewhere, which is supposed to be much better. But the version we've got, it's it's all right. I know it's got die-hard fans. I'm not particularly one of them, but at least it really swung for something, and maybe it missed a bit, but I think the first half's really great, and then once they have that sort of moment in the woods where they all wake up, after that it gets a little bit tiresome. It's got a bit of those sort of early noughties horror movie tropes and things that I don't enjoy. And then the Blair Witch remake, sequel, whatever it was fine.
Yeah, that's about all you can say, isn't it?
Yeah, they had like a drone. I thought they could do loads of really great stuff with a drone, but they just crashed in a tree, and It didn't really do much for me. There's been some great found footage stuff since then, but sadly not with the Blair Witch name on it. So
No. Okay. Some of the. Do you want to go next, Lou, or shall I do mine?
You can do yours. I'm thinking because I haven't done my homework.
Okay.
yes,
So,
I'm just putting up Letterboxd just now as well to remind myself what films came out in the 90s. So pop that there.
I had to go through. I was like, I was a teenager in the 90s. I watched loads of these, but I couldn't remember, so I wrote some down.
Oh,
So these are the ones that I remember watching. Flatliners, Dusk Till Dawn, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, The Craft, Blade, John Carpenter's Vampires, and Blair Witch. Those are the ones I wrote, which were my kind of really pivotal, I can't even say the word, pivotal films in that kind of most of those are towards the end of the 90s as well. But some of the, I mean, yeah, some of those I've watched over and over and over, and they're just they don't date. They're still as good today. And then some of them people have tried to redo, like I don't think I'm going to watch the new Craft Legacy thing. I've heard some really bad things about it, so I don't know.
Are we just too old for it now, maybe?
Well, this is it. The final guys were talking about it because Jack's just watched it, and he said the exact same thing. Possibly, if we were 16-year-old girls, maybe that would be, you know, the new Craft would be to them what the original Craft was to us back in the 90s, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. And I think there's always that sense of nostalgia with a lot of that stuff as well. You know, you remember, you know, I remember it was the kind of things that we watched at sleepovers and stuff like that. So there is that goes with it. But I mean, there was, when I was going through the list of the films in the 90s, there was some humdingers as well, some really, really bad stuff. Lots of sequels and, like as you said, like the straight to VHS and some awful stuff.
Some of those
the
are
best of the worst.
Yeah.
So sometimes those 90s sequels are some of my favourites, though, because
Yeah.
nostalgia probably
So
plays
glad it's good, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I adore Children of the Corn Part 2 and 3,
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead Part 2, Blood
Two,
Witches.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, there were some ones like that as well, but a lot of them are like, what were you thinking? Lou, what ones can you remember? Because you're the baby.
I am the baby, so I can remember seeing Urban Legend at the cinema. So that would have been 98, 99, I think.
Was that a 15 then?
I think it must have been a 15.
Yeah, it must have been.
And I can remember seeing The Faculty as well.
I love The Faculty.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I saw that for the first time about 5 years ago, and I don't know how I missed it, but what a great film. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that in the movies. Yeah. Amazing
I might have
film.
to rewatch it again soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I was so little in the 90s, I didn't really get to go to the cinema and see all the horror films. But looking back, there's like obviously the Child's Play sequels, and some of them are terrible, but I still love them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead 2. Just looking around my room, what else have I got?
Yeah, it's right behind me. I can't see it. It's like
When did Critters come out? When was that? And Leprechaun and all of those. Are they 80s or 90s?
they're
Leprechaun
80s,
was like 91, 92. Yeah. I'm not sure about Critters. I think that was a bit earlier.
Critters was 80s, definitely. Leprechaun had Jennifer Aniston in it, didn't it?
It did, yes. We actually rewatched that recently, and I was really surprised to see her in it. I didn't remember that. Okay, what about TV shows then?
Well,
what TV can you remember? Good TV, well, bad TV, anything that's horror TV.
I mean, the obvious ones being the holy trinity of TV: Twin Peaks, X-Files, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Woohoo! Yep.
Surely, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was first on because that started in 1990, and that was just I had no interest. I didn't even know what it was. But I caught that later on in the 90s on Bravo, I think, or Sky One or something. We're showing it at my friend's house. But the X-Files, huge deal for me, obviously. Just the first couple of seasons, especially, are still my two favourite. And then it got a lot funnier, of course, as it went on. But I still love those early spooky ones that were filmed in like British Columbia, where they always seem to be on a mountain. It's always raining. It just looks really miserable and atmospheric all the time. I think it was about season 5 or something. They moved to California to shoot it, and it lost some of that spooky 90s atmosphere for me. You guys big fans?
Massive, absolutely massive. I would say that Fox Mulder is still today one of my absolute heroes. If I had been American, FBI would have been what I'd wanted to do because of him.
And why you went into the police?
Yeah, well, I wanted to join the police from 4 years old. So yeah, if I was a cop here, but obviously you can't be in the FBI over here. But if I'd have been American and joined the American police, then yeah, I would have gone on to the FBI. And behavioral sciences and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I must have been about 15, 16, and I can remember that literally I had the posters, I had calendars, I had an X-Files cap. I was just like anything. I've still got somewhere like a little figure of Mulder. You know, he was everything to me. I also fancied the pants off him, so he was like my hero and the man I wanted to marry. But yeah, just everything about the X-Files I think sums up what I love about horror, and especially like you said, the first couple of seasons, you know, it's still iconic, that going in with the torch and that kind of stuff. It's just amazing. And I think that Eugene Toombs is still one of my favorite like characters and episodes, and just everything about that, where he slithers under the doors and stuff. Amazing.
There's actually a slight homage to him in Maggie's grave. So
right, that's it. When this is over, I'm buying it. I've got to read it.
What are you doing this afternoon? Just
yeah, nothing now. I'm reading.
What is it? Did you say that's your favourite episode, the Toombs and Squeeze ones?
Yeah, I also the Jersey Devil one is another one which I really love. There's just and the ones where Mulder like sort of finally finds like his sister and all of that kind of stuff, and all of those kind of, you know, I just love them. They're brilliant.
Absolutely.
Got them. I've got them all on VHS somewhere, like about the first 5 seasons. So I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and get them on Blu-ray at some point.
I had them on VHS, then I sold them and bought them on DVD. Am I gonna have to sell them on DVD and buy them on Blu-ray? Possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know how those older episodes will look because they're pretty grainy and gaudy looking. But
I think that's the appeal. I think that's the appeal of them. I like the fact that they're that grainy. That's the atmosphere. And another show that was on around that time, which I had completely forgotten about until I looked last night, was The Outer Limits. Did you watch that as well?
Yes, I watched the first episode, Sand Kings it was. I think I had like 3 generations of the Bridges family in it or something. And I didn't like it, and I didn't watch it again.
Okay.
But I was like 12 or something. I don't know. I was probably totally wrong. And I've just never gone back to it. There was a lot of British horror shows around that time. There was Chimera, based on the Stephen Gallagher novel. There was Chiller. Do you remember Chiller? It had a big screaming, bald-headed face thing going.
No, I don't remember that. Sounds quite cool.
It was like a British anthology horror series or something. I forgot it existed until someone posted about it on Twitter, like this month, and I thought, oh my god, I wonder if that's any good.
Okay. It is like some of the stuff, especially for you two being that bit younger. I imagine there were a lot of things that were on, and it just kind of like you weren't allowed to watch it, or it went straight over your head, kind of thing. But there was that, as I was looking back through again, I was thinking, oh my god, yeah, I remember catching just like bits of that. I also put down Charmed. I absolutely loved that, around the same time as Buffy and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
I never watched that.
Erie, Indiana.
Of course, yes.
Yep, which was again just absolutely, because Lou and I are good friends with Cameron Chaney, and he's all, even though he was only just born in the 90s, he loves all like the Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and all that kind of stuff. And we've said before, we were that little bit older for that, but Erie, Indiana was just amazing. I absolutely loved that. And then I've put down the most pivotal thing of the entire 90s for me was Halloween 1992 and Ghostwatch.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, Ghostwatch, still to this day, absolutely terrifying. I watched it just a few months ago.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's so good that I saw it as a kid, and then obviously you couldn't watch it for years after that because they never screened it again. It wasn't on VHS, DVD, anything. And eventually that DVD came out from BBC. I watched it again then. Would have been, probably about 10 years ago or something. Still terrifying. And then it's one of those, I waited like another 10 years or so to watch it because I don't want it to ever get not scary, you know. I want to keep that fear and that looking around being like, oh, there's Pipes there, Mr. Pipes.
Yep. So I'm quite friendly with Stephen Volk. He doesn't live too far from me, and I've never re-watched it. So I watched it that day when I was 12. I've never seen it again, but it is the single most scariest thing in my entire life. And I say to him, it affected me so badly, I ended up marrying someone with the surname Pipe. So that's pure fan dedication.
Try and exorcise your fear of it, yeah.
But yeah, I can.
So are you ever going to watch it back? Do you think you'll ever watch it again?
This is the thing. I don't know whether I want to, because it means so much to me, if that makes sense. That probably sounds really weird, but totally. Because it was such an amazing and terrifying moment in my, that I can remember as if it was yesterday. I don't know whether I ever want to revisit it. I quite like keeping it as the most scary thing that's ever happened to me.
I mean, if it helps.
Then what if you watch it back and it's not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luke just said, what if I watch it and I'm like, this is a pile of shit. How was I ever scared of this?
No, it's still scary.
Yeah.
Still terrifying. There's a bit at the end where the door under the stairs is creaking open and you start to see. Oh my God. Horrible. It's just sold so well by having that cast of really familiar faces. Sarah Green, Craig Charles.
I know.
And then it just almost loses it in the last 2 minutes for me, almost. But where Park is in the studio, but then it's the rest of it is so good that I don't care. It's an absolute masterclass, and I can't believe they got away with it. Fuck.
I know.
Oh, can I swear?
Yeah.
Don't worry. Yeah, we swear all the time. We've had Hunter Shea on here, everybody's. So once Hunter's been on, he kind of like set the scene for everyone else. Have you seen Host?
Yes, the Zoom one, yeah.
What did you think of that?
I loved it. I thought it was a terrific film, because you originally came to me and asked you asked about doing the best books that we'd read in 2020, and I'd only read about 2 from 2020. And I thought about films, but I've only seen about 2 films in 2020 as well, and one of them is Host. So that's currently the best film I've seen all year. But I've only seen 4 films or something from 2020. But it's terrific. And what I loved about it as well is that it's about 65 minutes long or something.
Yeah,
perfect.
I think it's 58 because that's how long a free Zoom call is, or something like that.
Of course,
it's they pay so much attention to detail. But the reason why I asked about that is I don't know if you know much about like the guys that made it, Robin, Jed, and whatnot, but they are massive Ghostwatch fans. So that whole thing is more or less an homage to Ghostwatch. And Stephen Volk they like talked to him all about it and stuff, and so that is kind of like today's Ghostwatch. And Stephen Volk loves it. He thinks it's fantastic.
And it is actually scary.
Yeah.
That'd be great to imagine making something in homage to this show, and then the creator of that show tells you how much he loves your version. Like that must feel really good for them. Like
definitely, yep, that's it. Okay, cool. What about books then? What books of the 90s really stood out for you?
oh, see, probably the only books that I've read that were released in the 90s, so published in the 90s, would be Stephen King and Sean Hudson.
Oh yeah, I can ask Sean Hudson for this one.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Although by the 90s he was losing interest a bit in the 90s, but he still did some really good ones. Heathen was the 90s, wasn't it? With,
Oh yeah, yeah. Was that the one where they had that bit in the wax museum?
100%, yeah. That's the bit I always remembered as well.
Surreal.
Yeah, women lose their husband, and then these characters come to. I don't remember why the wax museum comes to life or something. And there's a scene where someone burns. They torture someone by burning their hand on the hob of an oven.
Yes.
It just was really unpleasant.
Well, now I can't actually remember what the actual plot of that book was. It just feels like a lot of strange scenes.
Yeah, there's definitely shady figures in suits, and they're harassing this woman whose husband's died. But I can't remember the rest of it. I read them all in like.
Thought we had an affair. Was that one? And there was a strange cult.
There's probably a cult, but then there's usually a cult and someone having an affair in a John Hudson book.
Cool.
It'd be mostly Stephen King, to be honest. Because I suppose through the 90s, point horror, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's what I was. That was my main horror through the 90s, was point horror, definitely.
The Funhouse was the first one I read. Did you ever Diane Ho?
Yes, I've still got most of them up here. Got loads of my point horrors, and Fear Streets as well.
I never did Fear Street. I was just on the Pipecast, the Christopher Pike podcast, but I hadn't really ever read two Christopher Pike books. But point horror was slightly more my jam. But even in the 90s, Stephen King, I was probably still reading the 80s once. Bag of Bones, there we go. That's a really good one.
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
I can't see you. Are you looking these up?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
All his books are behind him. I know you can't see, but yeah.
No, it's just my memory's a little bit slow sometimes. Parsing through the details. It's talking to Stephen King, going back to TV for a minute there was a big thing in the 90s with Stephen King TV movies. Did you ever see the Shining TV version?
I haven't, but I've heard about it, and that it's just terrible. Yeah.
It's not great. Yeah. Because I guess another major 90s trend would have been the introduction of CGI to the horror, well, to films in general, but The Shining really picked. It's got some very poor CGI, put it that way. It's worth a watch if you can stomach 3 hours of it, and it's got the most annoying kid playing Danny Torrance I've ever seen. But have a few drinks and you can get through all 90 minutes of it. Oh, CGI, Jesus Christ. CGI was the worst thing that happened to horror in the 90s. There we are.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I guess it was 1990, I think, wasn't it? So yeah, that would have been. I'm not sure when it came to the UK, but it was around. It must have been like a couple of years later or something. But yeah, that's 1990. So, yep.
That was great because I remember watching it on Sky, and it turns out that for the advert breaks, they just kept the film playing underneath it. So when I saw it on DVD years and years later, I was like, "Fuck! There's whole scenes that I've never seen before." They just to fit it in a 3-hour time slot or something.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, again, a major 90s thing watching it on TV was like when it was just basically seeing all the cut versions of movies because first time I saw Freddy 13.
Them.
Sorry?
And then recording them on VHS.
Oh yes, sitting there recording and having your finger over pause, so when the adverts come on, you can pause it right on the advert break.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And then missing it slightly when it came back on.
Yeah.
I used to make my own VHS covers for things as well.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a bit nerdy.
Oh, the 90s, how amazing.
The Fly and the Fly 2 double bill VHS 3-hour tape. Oh, it's great.
Oh, The Fly.
That's the 80s, unfortunately.
That's
but
the 80s, yeah. Awesome. Well, I think I really just put down, I was exactly the same. It was Stephen King books and point horror. And I think there was like X-Files books and Buffy books and things like that, but they would all just have been tie-ins with the TV shows somewhere. And it must be in my garage, because I've gone through my entire house and I can't find them. But somewhere I've got some really big Buffy monster books. They're almost like encyclopedias of all like the different creatures and things. And there's about 3 of them, and they're big books, and I can't find them. So they must be somewhere in the depths of my garage, which isn't good.
I had the Watcher's Guide, which I think was the episode guide to season 1 and 2.
Okay.
And I remember there's one thing that absolutely terrified me, because if you ever read my book Forgotten Island, you'll discover I have a bit of a fear of spiders.
Yeah.
And there was the episode things where they was saying the Buffy writers based it. It must be one where everyone's fears came to life.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
Yeah.
Season 1, I think, or 2. And there was a story about how someone had got a bucket full of spiders and had poured it on top of someone's head, and the person had just died of a heart attack right there. Probably bollocks, but I still remember that.
Oh.
I think we should make a trailer for this episode and just have Janine's reaction to that.
I put something on Twitter a couple of days ago about, have you read a book recently that has genuinely scared you, that you might even have had to skip it or DNF it? Is there something that, because I think especially as us as writers, we're so desensitized to stuff, in a good way kind of thing, but it's very, very rare. Like people will say to me, oh, I couldn't read this Jack Ketchum book or whatever, and I'll be like, Jack Ketchum's nothing. I read extreme horror. That thing doesn't bother me. Excuse me. But there's a scene in have either of you read Tomb of Gods by Brian Moreland that came out this year?
It's on my list, but I haven't read it yet.
It is absolutely excellent. Brian Moreland is a phenomenal writer, but there's ones, and it's all about it's kind of like Indiana Jones, The Mummy, that kind of style. Set in Egypt with some archaeologists that are finding things, and this isn't a spoiler, but when they go into the tomb, one of the characters is deathly afraid of spiders, and they enter a realm of spiders. I couldn't read it. I read about the first 3 or 4 lines, and I was like, fuck this, no, and I skipped the entire chapter. And that's the first time I've done that with a book in like 20 years or something. So I can read about spiders. I can read about people being ripped apart. I can read about horrendous assaults and all that kind of stuff. But fucking spiders, no.
It's a good thing you bought my book Night Shoot and not The Forgotten Island then.
Oh, Jesus.
There's a scene in that where I just tried to think, right, I'm an arachnophobe. What would be my absolute worst nightmare? And that's... Oh, yeah.
And you could write it, could you? Because I've not done that yet with anything, but I don't know. Was it quite cathartic to write about it?
I'm actually a lot less afraid of them now. I don't mind them so much now, because what I had to do was, because there's some spiders in the book, so just to get the good description and stuff, I googled them. I was googling like spiders, looking at images and things, and I tend to write late at night. Wife's gone to bed, I'll stay up writing. So I sort of got over it there. Yeah, in fact, you'll enjoy the story of how I came up with part of the idea for the book. Actually, is that my wife and I were on holiday, and we were in not holiday. Fucking hell, cut that part out. We were on honeymoon. in Thailand. And I'd been brainstorming ideas for the book the whole way because we'd been on a boat and I'd seen this old Thai island, and there was a ruined hotel complex on top that had just fallen into disrepair and ruin. And I started thinking, oh, okay, I could do something with that. And then that night we went for our sort of romantic Thai dinner, and we were sitting underneath this big umbrella, and I just looked up, and there was this giant fucking spider, like the size of my face, right above my wife's head, and I scarpered out of there. And at that point I suddenly got, oh, actually, island spiders, oh, interesting, okay, and sort of worked from there. But Jesus Christ, it was horrible. Breaking out in a shiver just thinking about it.
Yeah. I actually feel a little bit sick.
Did it land on it?
We went to the people like, oh, there's a giant spider above us, and they just laughed. They just laughed at
Yeah.
us.
Oh yeah.
Big spider.
Oh fuck you, no. Oh.
But what about the cute little furry ones?
No, they're the worst. Fire, douse them with fire.
Oh.
To be fair, I would never hurt one. So if there is one in the house, and I'm kind of like screaming banshee, it's like I am brave enough to be able to put like a glass over it and then dispose of it. And I have tried, because I've got a 10-year-old, I have tried my utmost to not let her see any of that, because it is quite debilitating, because they're fucking everywhere. But it's the garden ones that are the worst, because they're all stripy and mean looking, and they just invoke evil when they look at you. Oh.
I was thrilled to see there was a news article last month about how they've discovered that Britain's biggest spider that they thought was extinct, they've actually found it again on a Ministry of Defence weapons test site. So it's probably fucking mutated as well. Like, oh, Jesus.
Oh, I'm never sleeping again. We've got peppermint spray all over like our windows, and conkers. Apparently they actually don't like a conker. If a spider sees a conker, they'll be like fuck, and they run away. So we have like all over our houses conkers and stuff. And our cats are piss useless as well. If they see a spider, they're just like, oh, spider, that's fine. Well, I fucking eat it. That's why it's there.
Mine eat them and they torment them. It's horrible.
Boris does eat the spiders, although one time he ate one, and then I went to pet him to say good boy and opened his mouth and it crawled out and back open.
Oh!
Remember that? It was
a trigger warning for this episode. If you're arachnophobic, do not listen.
And I'm just going to edit in some spiders to like walk across the screen.
Oh no. Oh. So remember the first episode we did when you died?
Yeah.
If you do that, there might actually be on the screen. Oh,
it reminds me a little bit though of going back to see how we tie it back into the 90s. We're so professional. There's an X-Files episode, War of the Coprophages, I think it's called, where it's the cockroach one.
Okay.
And at one point a cockroach actually walks across the screen.
Oh, amazing.
Like as if they've done it off the actual camera, and that's a great moment.
Excellent, yeah. I'm not particularly fond of any insects. I sound like a right wuss now. But it's only spiders that really evoke that whole actual terror.
I can't even figure out why it is. Yeah, like what is it about them? They're not that different from a daddy long legs or something, Oh,
I don't like them. That's daddy long legs are flying spiders. They're the worst.
I used to be so scared of them, but I'm fine now.
Oh.
I think it was after seeing one being eaten by the cat and its leg just going.
Oh.
Well, Lou, you would definitely enjoy Forgotten Island. Janine, stay well away from it.
Yeah, I do.
Sending you my therapy bills otherwise, yeah. Oh dear. Big brave horror writers.
We're big wusses.
Oh, is there anything that you would I absolutely love to write about? Have you got something that's like something that you haven't done yet, which you like, are just like a particular subgenre that you're dying to write about?
Yeah, well, what I'm doing really, it seems to be not quite intentionally, but I seem to be going through all my different favourite subgenres, and right now a wee book based on them. So we had like Forgotten Island was originally a sort of the Italian cannibal movies of the 80s, like Cannibal
Okay, yep.
Holocaust, Cannibal Ferox and things.
Yep.
It was meant to be one of those. It blossomed into something a bit more cosmic horror. But that was definitely supposed to be a cannibal one. Then I did a slasher with Night Shoot. Then Giallo with Dead Girl Blues, which is a sort of Italian sexy murder mystery thriller things from the 70s. And then Maggie's Grave's kind of folk horror. I'm working on a Christmas horror at the moment.
Oh, cool.
I've got a sort of 70s exploitation revenge type thing that I'm working on. Doing a Western. The one thing I've not really thought about or done, because it's kind of been done to death, I would need to come up with a new angle on it, would be like a zombie thing, because it's quite difficult now. Zombies have been thoroughly played out. Not played out, because there's still good stuff that can happen with it. But I've got a vague idea for a zombie thing, but it's getting the right twist on it to separate it a bit from everything else. Yeah.
What would you do? Would you do like a survival thing where zombies are already here, or would you do like how they came to be?
I think the sort of zombie apocalypse thing, I would prefer to scale it right the way back. If you think about it, actually, funnily enough, look at the I've not read World War Z or World War Z, if you prefer. But I saw the film, and I thought the first hour and a bit or so was really pretty boring, with like the apocalypse, millions of zombies running, and then it actually got decent in the last 20 minutes or so, where it was just one zombie. And I think that would be the way to go, is to scale it back to just like one or two zombies posing a really credible threat. Because I think that would be a wee bit scarier, maybe. When you got too many of them, it almost loses its impact.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, can see that. Yeah. And is there anything that you wouldn't touch? Is there any of the genres, or is there something that's like either that you just don't like, or something that's too far for you?
I love all aspects of horror, all aspects, with the sole exception of the sort of religious possession movie. So things like The Exorcist, I'm really not a fan of at all. I just anything to do with religion and possession, because I'm not a religious person myself, it tends to have I care very little about their sort of internal strife. I don't care about the internal strife of a priest or something, for example. I've no real interest. I can't relate in the slightest. Possession stories as well tend to be. This always feel really low stakes to me. It's like The Exorcist. I get it. It's like the devil. But it's just one girl, and it's like I want slightly higher. That sounds terrible for that poor one girl. I'm sure it's high stakes for her and her family, but
Poor Reagan.
I can't see me ever really covering any sort of possession-y type thing. I never really, or certainly not anything with an exorcism. I have no interest in that. But literally anything else. Oh, funnily enough, there's one of the best horror films of the 90s, Exorcist 3.
Oh.
Absolutely amazing. Because there is an exorcism at the end, but that was added in by the studio after the original version was apparently much better. Anyway, it's a great film. Have you guys seen Exorcist 3?
I can't think I have, actually. I don't think so.
I must have it in my box set, but I haven't. Or if I have watched it, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
You're in for an absolute treat, because it's like a really, really clever, well-written character study serial killer thriller with the biggest jump scare you'll ever see.
Right, okay, I'm going to find it.
Absolutely. It's an absolute masterpiece of just like, you know the jump scare's coming, you know it is, and it just keeps, it's not there, it's not there, it's not there. And just when it's gone on so long, this one scene, you start to relax.
Nice.
Oh,
I
something.
need a good jump scare. Nothing makes me jump scare anymore. My husband's the other way. We can be watching anything, and every 5 minutes, like, whoa, like constantly. And I'm just pissing myself at him laughing. So a good jump scare is always welcome.
Well, put your phone away, put the lights off, headphones on,
Probably
concentrate.
that's it. Yeah.
Some of my friends were like, was like, oh, that film wasn't scary, but like they're just sitting like on their phone on Twitter the whole time, and you're like, well, if you're not concentrating, you're not gonna get the scare.
No, that's it. You've got to fully submerge yourself in the atmosphere and be at one with the film.
Like what I did with Post when you watch it on your laptop.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Feel like you're part of it then. Okay, well, I think that about rounds everything up. Lou, first of all, is there anything else that you wanted to ask or anything else that you wanted to say? 90s? Or David? Or Boris?
I can't be Boris. I'm very excited to watch this back and see Boris.
Yeah. He's so cute. His little tongue's like,
I don't think I've got anything else to ask other than which of your books should I read next? If I really loved Maggie's Grave, that I like gory stuff. And James Blunt.
I think probably Night Shoe. I always reckon that's my possibly the best one to start with. Which it's yeah, I'd say go for Night Shoe. Dead Girl Blues has a lot less of the humour than the other three, because there's definitely some humour in most of my books, but that's got a bit less. It's about snuff movies, although that's probably the most Sean Hudson one of them all, because it's a really seedy, grimy descent into sort of gross British underbelly of society. So it's definitely the biggest Sean Hudson influence on that one. I'd just get them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, women, what are you doing? That's what he's saying, basically. Yep. Just buy all my books. Just
get Forgotten Island, and then you can phone up Janine and read out passages about spiders to her. And really
that's going to be my Christmas gift to you.
Yeah. Oh, I'll send it back. Well, part of me wants to read it now just to terrify myself, because that's, again, as horror readers, we want to be scared, don't we? That's why we do this in the first place. So, yeah.
Have you seen Arachnophobia, talking 90s?
No, I've never seen it, because I just know there's no point in me watching it. I just couldn't do it.
It's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that one before? That's a great film.
No, I can't do it. Give me people ripping other people apart. Yeah, I can take all of that. Cannibals are fine. No worries of extreme whatsoever. Hello, Christmas. But no, I will not watch anything with a spider in it. Nope. Even the bit on we watched Home Alone again the other day, just because it's Christmas, we're putting the Christmas tree up, and even the bit in Home Alone when the spider's on the dude's face, I was like, no, there's no need for it.
His scream when that spider goes on his face is the best scream in cinema history.
We read recently that apparently that was dubbed in later. He wasn't allowed to actually scream because it would have scared the spider.
Oh, so they've gone down his throat and killed him. Oh.
Yeah, so it was a real spider on his face, but he just had to kind of go, and then they put the scream in afterwards, because otherwise that would have probably given the spider a heart attack. Fuck the spider!
I would have had the heart attack. Jesus Christ.
Well, have you got anything that you wanted to add, or are you happy with everything that you've been able to plug? And where can people find you if they don't know your social medias and stuff?
You can find me on Instagram at Paperbacks and Pugs. That's mostly pictures of Boris and my book collection. If you'd prefer to follow me for reviews of very, very sleazy 70s horror exploitation trash, then find me on Twitter at Paperbacks Pugs, so no A or D, because Twitter's daft as fuck. And yes, my books are all available on Amazon worldwide in paperback or Kindle, and they're also available on the Kobo store. It's Kobo, isn't it?
Yeah, I got Maggie's Grave on Kobo.
Oh, did you? Oh, you're the person.
That's me.
That was you!
Oh, it's
Yay
just
for
an
Lou!
absolute smash. I sell about. Yeah, it's there, and if anyone actually uses Kobo, they can buy them. But fucking hell, 99.99% of my sales are from Amazon.
It's just Lou on Kobo.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure Lou's our tech whiz and she does all of the editing and stuff, but she'll make sure that we've got all the links down below and everything so that people can buy your books. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been great fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye. Bye.